Here we go.
I think we're live there.
I think we're live too. So, let's give an intro. I'll do a proper intro for everybody. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Prime Time Live. Can you believe I can say that out loud? We're here to launch my book, Prime Time, 27 Lessons for the New Midlife. And I want to introduce you to Sophie Hamley, the publisher of the book. I get to actually bring you the lady who said yes to my first one and then my second book. So, and we're going to just banter about this book and talk about it so that you can learn a little bit about it. This is going out live to everybody on Facebook and on YouTube today. First time we've ever done it. So if you're out there, leave us some comments. We probably won't be able to reply to you because we're coming through a streaming platform, but I will reply afterwards. Be assured.
Bec, congratulations, first of all. It is publication day today and therefore incredibly momentous to be doing this on your publication day. Thank you for asking me to be here. And you said I'm the lady who says yes, who said yes to you. It's very easy to say yes to you. So this is our second book together, Prime Time. We worked on Epic Retirement. Well, you worked on Epic Retirement and I published it.
You did too.
And you have a new edition of this coming out in December. I should say, Epic Retirement. It'll be ANZ, which will have New Zealand retirement systems in their pension
Yes, we still have to edit that one.
I was just to say, because a lot of people wouldn't know this yet, there will be Epic Retirement UK as well.
I know, we haven't announced that one yet either. All the people that are watching are getting the secret insight.
As I started to say, I thought, are we allowed to talk about that?
Yeah, well, look, I think everybody who's brave enough to watch us should know what's going on. So December is going to be a very big month in Australia and the UK for Epic retirees.
And for you, and this is all your creation. So those of you watching, I should say that Bec is just the most dynamic, professional, wonderful person to work with as an author, and she has written a fantastic book. And we are here to talk about Prime Time, though, not Epic.
Yeah,
so Prime Time, 27 Lessons for the New Midlife. Now, you started talking about this book quite a while ago to me, but I would love the viewers to know why you decided to write it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had written Epic Retirement always with the view that that was where the obvious lessons needed to be learned. People coming closer to retirement relate to the R word. They feel like they need knowledge right now. But in fact, once you're that close to retirement, there's only so many things you can do. And when I wrote that book, I knew that I could put together quite easily the guidebook of things you needed to know coming into that phase of life. But what was harder, and I needed to do a lot of time in the chair learning, was how could we actually teach people earlier how to live maybe a different style of life that didn't say, hey, I'm going to prepare only for retirement, but instead started to say, I have to prepare for retirement. But in fact, I don't want to wait for retirement to have a good life. I want to start living the life of my dreams before I retire. And because I'm starting a lot earlier with my planning, if I can get to everybody earlier, could I start being able to live a more flexible life, enjoying some of the joy that other generations, younger generations, chiefly have managed to build into their lives because they've thought about it differently from day one? Well, I think Gen X and the late boomers, the younger boomers, are the last ones to put themselves first because they've been running on a wheel through the changing of the world, right? Mm-hmm. And so we're in this phase now where there's actually ways to use all the things we have, but often we don't stop and look at it and talk about it. So this book required me to slow down, to really, I did the podcast for almost 18 months called Prime Time, and I got to talk to experts all around the world about how things are changing and what's changing. But then I had to go to ground and write something that had structure to it, that has linear lessons, because if you're not learning something, it's just noise, right? So for me, it's got to be back to practical usage content. If it's not, I guess I don't want to trade on my own ego. It's not how I do it. So it's a utility book. And it's got to teach somebody something that they didn't know, or didn't know how to think it through that way, or maybe hadn't thought of it that way. And I get to tap some of the best experts in my chair that teach me things, right? Experts in financial, how to spend your money and plan your money. I've gone to some of the most amazing people and said, I'm thinking about it like this. Do you agree? What is your science of spending telling you? And there we had long debates, like Aaron Minnie, the guy who helped me significantly with the spending section and the new lessons of midlife that are in here in money. He and I, and he's like the guru, he and I sat for ages and he read the book like 3 times with a red pen. And, you know, that is a blessing. When I wrote Epic, I had nobody like that to do that. I had people in every chapter who were experts in their domain writing with me to make sure that I was challenging myself to go beyond what I knew. And that's a real treat.
I think the reason why you've had people working on this book with you and you said you didn't have anyone with Epic is because of what you've created since Epic. And that is that you stepped into this space as an authority, but also as an inspiration to a lot of people. I think my perception of all the activity around Epic and leading into prime time is that there are, well, we know now that there are hundreds of thousands of people in your Facebook group who are looking to you for inspiration, direction and information. So what I find in prime time is that you said it's a utility book, but as with Epic, your voice is so warm and authoritative at the same time that you just make it really easy to read it. And I think that's a very hard thing to pull off with this sort of content, which can be really dry. So when you're approaching the writing of it, are you thinking of a reader? Like, do you feel like you're talking directly to people?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I have to be talking to people like they're my friends, and like I've found out something and I want to share it with you. and if I'm not speaking the way I speak in a room, I know if I get technical, if I'm reading something financial and I find myself echoing the financial stuff, I actually just leave those words, come back later and rewrite them. Because for me, the language that I write in, even in the newspaper, it took a bit to find it, but I've been writing for over 60s for like 15 years in digital media. And then when I started writing books, I had no idea whether I had a book writing capability, none at all. I had written short form content, but that was it. And I wasn't ever trained as a journalist other than 1 semester in a journalism degree. So I don't write like a journalist. I write through a lens that I've had to try and figure out for myself. And so my style, I now feel quite confident in, that I can have a little bit of fun, that I can be a little bit playful, that I can put some of myself into the writing and not just deliver the knowledge, but deliver the essence as well. And that's become something I'm much more confident about in book 2, thankfully.
And it all comes across, I have to say. So if there's someone watching who's wondering if they are in their prime time, what you mentioned Gen X to early boomers, do you have an exact age range in mind for the prime time?
I have a picture in my mind, and it comes out of the science of modern aging as partly, and it comes out of probably what I've learned just by listening to people. And that is, I think it starts around about 47. I actually think I hit my prime time around about 47 because it starts with a bump often for people. And it starts not necessarily with a great big revelationary moment of, you're going towards the light, but instead you feel like you've hit rock bottom and you're going, shit, I need to change something. It's not working. And for other people, they just hit a turning point. And so for me, there's a window where you start going, you know what, I've got to put myself back in here. I'm not in my picture. I'm doing everything for everyone else, or I'm there at work just killing myself, but I haven't been to the gym lately. And I really need to rethink why. What am I enjoying? What am I being? Where am I going? Have I got the money to make those choices to do things differently? And not everybody does when they wake up. They go, crap, I haven't even looked at my money for years. I've been cruising along spending just what I earn. Maybe more than. There was a period we were spending more than we earned because of the cost of kids and the cost of life when you're at the thick of it. And you actually have to make a corrective move and go, you know what? The kids are starting to fly free. I'm now not going to buy their clothes anymore, except Christmases and birthdays. They can start to spend their part-time job money, right? Gonna start to correct a little towards getting the house into balance. I'm going to get some savings into super. I'm going to think about the future. And then I'm going to start on today, right? What do I want today to be? Because you actually have to have the future sorted to deal with today. Otherwise, you feel uncomfortable about the future and therefore you won't look. Most people put their head in the sand. So it's 47. to about 70, because I don't think so. The average age of retirement today in Australia is 64.5, 64.8. Men retire older, women retire a little bit younger on average, unless you're in one of the career types that push you to pension age, right, which is 67. But when you actually dig below the numbers, you ask people whether they're still working after retirement or whether they want to have a part-time job in retirement, 70% of people across a couple of different answers kind of answer yes.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not really retired in the I'm off having an epic retirement of the future way I want to define it. I want to say that, yes, one day there will be a window where we have a prime time that lasts longer and an epic retirement that comes after it. And you only enter the epic retirement in my future dreams when work is no longer a dominant force in your life. And in fact, you prime time through the period of flexibility. And this is the portfolio life, the I want to do it all but have it all my way phase. And I think people thought epic retirement was the only time you could have that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm saying, no, you had super for 33 years. It actually gives you so much more power than you realize. If you're 50, if you're 65 today, you probably didn't have super at the highest levels all the way through life. So you're actually probably in a shittier position. I hate to break that to people, but this book is for people between 47 and 70 for a reason, because the narration for somebody who's 67 today and hasn't saved yet has to be work on your epic retirement. You've got to work with what you've got.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With prime time, you can work with what you haven't got yet. You've got time to earn it. You've got time to save it. You've got time to compound it before you get to retirement. And that's optimism in a box, right?
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of what you do in this book is you accommodate all types of lifestyle, really. It's not saying, oh, well, you have to have this amount of money saved or you have to be doing things a certain way up to this point in order to have a prime time. You're actually offering different avenues for people. You're looking at different sorts of permutations of income and lifestyle and all sorts of things and saying, right, if this is what you want, here's how you go towards it. And that's the other part of it, is acknowledging that people can want several different things. So you do start with money in the book, and it is a very big section for a reason. And that is because there's a whole lot to know about your midlife turning point.
It is huge. And money is this thing we all hide ourselves from until we have to deal with it at this stage of life. And often people don't deal with it till they're in their 50s, well in their 50s, or they can see the R word. But if we dealt with it earlier and if we made it easier to deal with it earlier, that I think is the thing, that it's all financial advisors and hard, scary stuff in the big world, but nobody explains where you use that financial advisor and where they're using you to grow their businesses and where you can use the different systems together to get your confidence up and understand where you can use your super fund, where you can use your advisors, or where you need advice or not, and how you can grapple with the journey in, but I also understand how money works, because it changes. It's not just a paycheck in and working out once you move into the next phase. It's different sources of money working differently. And it's not that complex, but nobody explains it because it's this thing we all have to figure out.
Mm-hmm.
Why do we have to make mistakes to learn? Why couldn't we just read a book?
Well, this is the thing. Reading this book, I did feel like it was an education that I hadn't had, but also that I needed. And I was wondering why it was not so simply expressed in all sorts of places, but maybe it's just because you are the right person at the right time to express it.
Maybe a lot of people have had a vested interest in keeping this information behind multi-$100 an hour services. Right? Politely. It's been in their interests to not have this information widely understood, right? Because then you have to go to the gatekeeper to learn, right? And then the gatekeeper can charge you for that. Where if you went to the gatekeeper with knowledge, actually come out better off, right? I love advice. I get advice. I have an advisor on an ongoing basis, but I go to him for investment and he manages the stuff I don't want to manage, right? And it's magic. He's in the book. He's written a section of the book with me, right? I think when we know how to tap into it, and we're not just tapping into it for the things we don't understand, but also because we consciously know that they are better at that job than I will be. It's better service provision, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think one of the things I've always admired about you as an author is how you have so much knowledge, so much information, and you gatekeep none of it. Everything you know, everything you learn from experts, you put in these books and you communicate through your columns and through your podcast. And so that generosity of spirit, I think, is entirely through this book. So for anyone who hasn't read Epic Retirement, hasn't read any of your columns, just know that you are in the very best of hands with Bec. And I think that must stem from a fundamental part of your personality, actually.
I read a book years and years ago. I used to run a marketing consulting business to teach professionals how to build their businesses, like lawyers and accountants and people who were introverts mostly and didn't like talking on camera or it was before cameras, but didn't like writing newsletters and didn't like doing all that. And I used to teach them all how to have an outward personality. Mm-hmm. And it basically, the thing I used to teach them was give generosity first. Mm-hmm. Right. And lead with generosity, because the more people can understand who you are and what you bring, the more you get rid of the tire kickers who really aren't there they're just there to flog your stuff and use it for themselves. And I actually think, well, you know what, if I leave behind a legacy of knowledge and a few people buy the book, we're winning, right?
More than a few people have bought Epic Retirement. It's an ongoing bestseller because it's two years after publication and still reaching people all over the place. I should also say that people who are watching us live, some people will watch this recorded
on Facebook Live and YouTube today.
If you have questions for Bec, she can't see them because we're using a streaming platform, but I think you'll answer them later.
Yes, I will.
Yeah. So if you're typing away and wondering why Bec's not answering your questions, that is why. So moving on from money, and this is something that came up in Epic as well, health. So you put health right next to money in importance, and again, part of your absolute skill as a writer is that you don't preach about health, but you very gently persuasively urge us to take care of our health. Why is it so important to you to have this right next to money in the book?
Well, I mean, I think it's fundamental, and it's probably the thing I've got to focus on most in the next part of my own journey, is that if you want to live a long life, right? If our lifespan at 50 is on average somewhere between 90 and 98, right? Depending on how you look after your health, not how much money you've got, but how you look after your health. And you don't want to spend a large portion of your later years in crappy health. Then you've got this sort of window where you work on your strength and your mobility, and you might change your focus from what you did when you were younger, where it was all hardcore cardio, to thinking about why we need to look after our health. And for me, that comes into a few boxes. We've got to be able to move all the way through our life, and all of us who have family members who are struggling to get up and down stairs know and see how hard that is to watch, and how wish that we could help them go back and look after their bodies better earlier. So if we get in at 50 and maybe even earlier, if we haven't already, and start that fitness work, and say muscle mass exercise and, strengthening and stretching and all of that stuff is going to help us all our lives. But then there's also the chronic disease. We know actually chronic disease is what kills us all. And there are ways to prevent or slow the impact of chronic disease simply by recognizing it. If you wait till you get it and then go to the doctor and then have to pull it back, you've got a much higher risk of mortality concerns and more importantly, low quality life, right? Who wants a low quality life? We all want to live the best way I can. The best way I can tell the story is my dad. He's 79. He's in France right now. And he's always exercised, always. Every day of his life, I can remember him exercising, much more disciplined than me in that space. Every day I'll write, I won't exercise. And and he now is out there every single day on his tours doing things all day long. He's got the stamina, the energy, the interest. He's out canoeing on the riverboat trips, and he's doing all the day trips. My stepmom, she's healthy, but at 75, she's tired after a full day, and that's just an ordinary person. She goes to Pilates and does her health stuff, but not at the intensity he does it. So you go, wow, we got a choice to try and invest ourselves in those things, and if we can do it earlier, we're investing alongside our money so that we get a better life.
And I think it's part of the story as well of this book, which is that it's worth valuing yourself for each individual who reads this. It's not about, oh, you should do these things because someone says they're good to do, or Bec says they're good to do. It's actually, this is about valuing yourself as an individual, valuing and valuing your health and well-being, so that you can also have a great life for the people who love you. And
or that too.
well, yeah. So I think that's why I often say your work is inspirational as well as being just really pragmatic, because I always come away from it, no matter how many times I read the manuscript, and think, oh, I've learned something and I'm inspired and all sorts of things. So I hope other people feel the same.
Right? Even when I think I know what I'm going to write about, I go off and look for scientific papers about, in there's some cracking lessons that I had to go and sort of figure out a way to tell a story on how goals are set. Because I thought, man, most people don't even know what a goal is. When I ask you in a financial advisor's office, when somebody says, what's your goals? You go blank. You go, am I meant to say $1 million now? Am I meant to say I want to be able to travel once every 2 years overseas? Am I meant to say, what am I meant to say? Well, it's not what you meant to say. A goal is simply something that takes you beyond the path of least resistance. If it was going to happen anyway, it's not a goal. All right. So now we get a way to frame a goal. Well, a goal can be anything I want to do that wouldn't have happened anyway. Okay. What do I want to do? Okay. I want to caravan around Australia once in my life. I did a combi van trip around Europe when I was 21. I want to repeat that in a nicer car. Right? Is it okay to say that? I want to do it cool, the rustic way, but I want to do it that way. But I start to build a tick list of things that would be hard, that I have to plan for, that I need a budget for, that I then inspirationally work towards. And they become goals. I want to be there for my grandchildren one day if I can get some. Hang out with them, right? And I want to be at their level, constantly engaged in their life, not mine, right? So, I want to enjoy that one day. You got to think those things out. Think who you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah. Well, and it's also not boring to do it. Sometimes the presumption can be, oh, this is like a task. But I think you've structured it in a way that it is inspiring to think about it, as in, I'm trying to work out how I want to live the rest of my life the best way possible. And it's fun to think about, and the structure is there in the book to do it. A big part of that piece is work. So obviously Epic Retirement presumes that people are either out of full-time work, or they're close to it, or they are doing some volunteer work or something part-time. But in prime time, you're talking to people who are mostly...
They might have 15 years of work left. They might have 15, even 20 years of work left, right? Yeah. I don't think we're going to retire at 65 for much longer. I think we're going to say 70 within 5 years. And that's not going to be because we're going to be tossed around in midlife by AI. We're going to be spat out, and we're going to have to reinvent ourselves. So we're going to have to open the conversation in midlife about what adjusting looks like to a new way of working, whether we want to go. And the conversations, there's lots of them in this book. There's lots of different things to think about. You first have to think about whether you want to keep going up the ladder in your 50s and 60s, or whether you want to start moving towards pathways of enjoyment, flexibility, because up the ladder doesn't always give you those things, right? I've gone up the ladder for the whole first half of my life, driven by success factors. Now I sort of go, hey, actually, I'm starting to say, you know what? I don't want to work on Saturdays. If somebody asked me to guest speak every weekend on a Saturday, I love guest speaking, but I want to be at my son's football game for the last couple of them, right? And so these are choices I get to make if I'm in the right financial situation. And if I'm not, I have to do what I have to do, right? But getting people to think about what they really do get to choose in work, and then starting to say, and a lot of people say, oh, but I'm a physical laborer, my body's going to wear out before my mind. Well, maybe you could teach other people to be a plumber or a tradesperson, or maybe there are other paths for you for the next 15 years, not just stopping and living off a pension or a disability pension or anything like that. And I think opening a conversation for all different types of people, professional, non-professional, vocational, like just about how to shape and go and be curious and learn again. Often we've thought, oh, I'm not going to go back and learn something at 50 or 55 because I haven't got long enough in my career to change paths.
Mhm.
If you're going to work till you're 65 or 70 in some capacity, and I'm not saying 9 to 5, 5 days a week, if you're going to work because you enjoy it for a little bit of pocket money, but also just because you like it, right? Then you have to, and if you hate your job at 50, then you've got to do something somewhere along, and no one else is going to do it for you. And so I just give you that sort of nudge and alternate ways of thinking about it so that you can redesign in your mind where you might want to go first before you take the steps. Because I think there's a bit of thinking and baking that has to be done here internally. It's not just a tactical book. It's mental and tactical, even though I'm not a psychologist. I've done a lot of research into it.
Yeah. I think people can come to the end of this book and not necessarily have all the answers to have their prime time right now, but they will certainly be thinking about things, and it may just marinate in the back of their brains for a while until a different pathway to work comes in. And I think that is, again, the value of it. It's not prescriptive. It's giving some gentle direction, often imparts some sterner direction, particularly around health, I think, in a way that people need. But in your voice, again, warm and authoritative at the same time, which is quite a combination, I have to say. So that you cover pretty much all aspects of life in this, including family. And I'm just looking at the time because we're getting close to the end of our time together, but travel was a big part of Epic. It's also part of this. So those components...
It's different. Travel and adventure are much more active in this phase of life. And so I really kick into new types of travel that I wanted to talk about, which are the ones I'm digging into, which is challenge travel. I did a big hike last year. I want to do things like yoga retreats and doing holidays. I know you do these, right? And going and doing. And then I want to do adventure holidays where I'm experiencing, not necessarily because it's a challenge, but because I'm going places that are new. I'm with my family, maybe doing something experiential. We went to the Greek islands and the Amalfi Coast, places we'd never been, just recently, as my little, oh my God, hopefully this book goes well holiday. And you know, that was one thing I wanted to get in before the year got busy, and they're important to have both, I think.
I think it was also I've been working every single day for the past 2 years, and I need a holiday.
I need a weekend.
You needed more than a weekend, and you were still working while you were overseas.
Not very much, though. Not by my standards.
So I'm interested in the course of writing this book, if there were things that you discovered that surprised you.
I really enjoyed breaking out the 3 phases of finance into the setup phase, the lifestyling phase, and the part-timing phase. I think that's going to help the whole discussion about how to have a midlife. And that wasn't a framework I went in knowing I wanted to play in. I was thinking about how to build money into an accessible way to plan for it. And I worked it really, really hard. And I went, you know what, we need to cut it up so that people can decide where they are in the journey. I think the lattice and the ladder in the journey of thinking about our work and deciding when we move off the ladder, and sometimes it can be a slippery pole, just gets greasier and greasier the higher you go, and maybe just saying, hey, actually, I'm on the lattice. I don't need you to approve of what I'm doing now. I'm on my own journey. It's okay if everybody else doesn't think that's what they want, and becoming very self-driven. And then I think a lot of these things, hopefully a lot of people my age, your age, are nodding along to, going, yeah, actually I couldn't put words into my mind about why I was starting to feel uncomfortable, because there's not a lot of words in this stage of life, and we don't want the R word yet, right? So retirement isn't the word we want to relate to, but there's no language for discussing it. And you know, I don't want to be the menopause. It's got its own universe going on. This is just going to, I hope, become a conversation around prime timing. I don't even think midlife's the right word. It makes me uncomfortable, that word. It feels too self-helpy. Prime time says to me there's a level of joy in it. It's a stage of life. It's a new thing that we're all getting, and why not call it that and go and make it one.
Yeah, and part of your genius is, I think, in completely reframing times of life that have been previously framed as being perhaps arduous. Beige. Okay. Yes, beige is a great word. Like epic, how to have an epic retirement. Well, you've completely transformed a lot of people's ideas of retirements, and I think prime time, again, you've now reframed the midlife crisis. And if it's a crisis, then it's precipitating prime time, I think, is part of it.
It should start, if you have a crisis, it should kick something off.
Yeah.
And you should get to the good bit.
Yes. Yeah. So there are 27 lessons in here, but I'm wondering if there's one key message you would like people to take away from this book.
Be curious. Be absolutely curious about what this stage of life can give you and what you can go dig out of it, because you don't have to wait for retirement to have a good period of life. If you're feeling the grind, and most people are feeling the grind in this phase of life, and that is a signal to go and find what it is that gives you energy if you've lost it, and go looking. I did 2 years ago. I was completely ground out, and I went looking, and I found you, thank God. And I didn't know it would happen, right? You just don't know until you start looking what it is that drives you, whether it'll work. You know, you've got to have ideas and feel inspired again to get up, get going, have another round of interesting. And, you know, that's very self-driven. We don't talk about how self-driven the second half of life needs to be, and how you can't rely on other people to do this for you. And maybe you can team up with a best friend or a partner or a, you know, but ultimately, even my partner and I, we have to do it in our own heads first.
Yeah.
Right. You got to think out what's going to sparkle you. And then you got to go and find it and believe that you can. And so you need a cheer squad, and you need all that.
Yeah. And of course, everyone watching is going to now go and read Primetime. And once they have read Primetime, what do you think they should do?
Write me a review, please. Do you know how important that is for authors? It's so important. Please write a review of the book on Amazon or Goodreads. They are the two platforms everybody looks at. But also, I want you to understand and put in place a plan. It doesn't have to go that way to the plan. Like, you can have a soft plan, you can have a vision, but understand your money, understand what you want to do with your health, think about your work. You know, start to really be conscious in your family. Be there, be present. Don't just be on your phone and let time go by. Bloody book some great holidays and plan for them and save for them. And then finally, embrace your power. That's the sixth pillar. So I've just given you all the pillars of your prime time. Your power, which is actually the first pillar, is most people don't realize they have the power at this point of life, even if they're in a shitty financial situation today, to change things. They've got 15 years till they retire possibly, and that's enough time to fix things.
Now, you also have some extras for people who buy the book. They're available from your website, and the book is available everywhere. It's basically everywhere.
I can't believe it. Last time it wasn't available everywhere, and it was really quite hard to get retailers to keep a retirement book in stock because nobody had ever written one that people wanted to buy before, I don't think. Bless. It's rude of me to say that, isn't it? But
live and it's recorded. But anyway, that's what.
Well, no, I love Noel Whittaker. I love, and his book, he struggled to get retailers and publishers to publish it. He had to self-publish. He talks about the challenge of being in retirement is just the unsexiest category on earth. Hopefully, we made it sexier, and now people will stock the.
I think you did. So it is available. This is my job as your publisher to say the book is available. Big W, Kmart, Target. So
yes.
those outlets,
Amazon, Booktopia, all the major bookstores, everywhere.
We love our indies, so please go and support the independent booksellers. But yes, Dymocks, Collins, all over the place. It's also an ebook, and it's an audio book that you spent many hours recording.
I recorded it.
So that's leave it there pretty much.
Yes. And thank you so much for coming on, Sophie, and being a part of the conversation. To everybody out there who has pre-ordered the book, because we've had phenomenal pre-orders for an Australian nonfiction book. Like they tell me people don't do this in Australia. Well, we've broken all stories apart and said they actually do. You know, thank you for that and for getting behind the book. The next wave I could really use your help with is being the buzz club for the book, helping people find it. Because this isn't a category where people go looking for books. They don't realize they can help themselves in midlife. And they're going to find that out through you, by you telling them a story and you telling them that they can. And you know, giving the book as a gift and all those wonderful things. So thank you. And thank you, Sophie, for backing me.
Thank you for writing a fantastic book. And thanks to everyone for watching. Make this your prime time.
Woohoo! Make your prime time count.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.